On behalf of the Hendersonville League of Women Voters, I welcome you to our candidates forum for the 1990 Hendersonville City election. We are pleased to have with us today candidates for Alderman and Mayor, members of the media, representatives of the Hendersonville City Government, and our moderator, Mrs. Virginia Thigpen. The League is part of a national organization which has a long history and an excellent reputation in providing public forums for candidates running for public office. We have built on that expertise in developing today's candidates forum. The League is a nonpartisan political organization. We do not support candidates nor political parties. We do advocate action on various issues once we have completed an in-depth study and reached a consensus among our members. Our primary goal is to provide opportunities for voter education and participation. That is our reason for our involvement and sponsorship of today's forum. By providing a setting which allows the candidates to come forward, to introduce themselves, and to give a presentation on how they will help govern our city, we enable voters to gain information on how these candidates will represent the city. Voters are then able to go to the polls and make an informed decision. That is our primary goal. We also want to add that the League neither endorses nor rejects any of the comments made by the candidates today. We assume no responsibility for their responses today. Park Cable has agreed to air this tape several times in the next 2 weeks. They will air this tape of the forum on the evenings of September 23rd and 26th and throughout the day on September 24th and 25th. We will begin today's forum with a 3-minute presentation from each of the candidates for Alderman. Logan McCord of Ward 4, Mark Merritt from Ward 2, and Ray Pigg from Ward 6 are not with us today. We will begin with Ward 1, Mr. John Prentiss.
Good morning. My name is John Prentice. I'm a candidate for Alderman from Ward 1. It's been my pleasure and privilege to serve Ward 1 for the past two terms, 4 years, as Alderman, representing Ward 1 in the city of Hendersonville and Board of Mayor and Alderman. This year we have a rather unique situation in which almost no aldermanic races are contested. That makes, I think, the race for mayor even more important, and I think that it is important that everyone turn out and express your choice at the polls. I've heard a number of people comment that the voter turnout this year is going to be very low. I think we should correct that and prove those prognosticators in error. I would urge you to turn out and vote. With that political commercial aside, I'd like to comment that I think there are a number of key issues facing the city. One thing that has occurred over the past 4 years, bad press notwithstanding, is our form of government has begun to mature. We are coming together, we are figuring it out, we are making progress. I think strong leadership is what's going to get us the rest of the way. Strong leadership to attend to several key issues that are really serious issues facing us. One key issue, in my opinion anyway, is we must figure out a way to attract business opportunities to the city of Hendersonville, business development, economic development. We must get that program off the ground and running. Another issue is we have a number of infrastructure problems that must be addressed. One that is not normally thought of as infrastructure is our parks system. We have an excellent park system, however we've just about outgrown it. And we've just about gotten hemmed in and surrounded where we cannot expand our current facilities. We must get a program off the ground now to place those critical facilities in position to be accessible to everyone in our community. That's, I think, a very key part of making Hendersonville the good place to live and work that it is. Another issue involves public safety. Certainly we must get on with constructing at least 1 and probably 2 more fire halls in the very near future. Certainly our police building is a matter of shame. Anyone who has not visited it needs to. You will be ashamed of it. We must continue to make progress and very quickly provide adequate facilities for our public safety officials in order that they may perform their job adequately to serve the citizens of this community. Another key issue that's hard it's a hard question, is the ability to manage our funds. One of the things that we've let get behind is our revenue producing area, that is our city limits, does not in fact match our expense area, those areas where we are providing services. I'll say the bad word, annexation. We must properly define our city limits in a manner which defines and confines services and makes that match revenue generating. We are providing services now to many areas outside the city. With those issues in mind, I'll wrap up and say thank you for watching. Please vote this year.
I'm Joe Skidmore from Ward 3. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters. I know this is going to be a good forum, as it always is. The League always does a really good job. I would like to thank all of the people out here in the audience that took out of their time to come and hear this morning, because only through participation in city government can we have good city government. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and tell y'all what we need, because every one of you know that we need more fire protection and that we need a police building, so I'm not going to take up the time reminding you this, because if you read the papers, and we do have excellent press coverage, you know how I have always stood on the police building. I have been for years trying to get that through, well, for 4 years, but that seems like for years to me. And of course, our fire protection, we need a fire station, and of course, through good, sound, physical, financial management, we can have that. And I hope that when you go and vote this year, that you will look at the ones that are running for mayor and try to assess what you think in your mind that they would do, because we must move ahead. I have always supported good, clean industry. That was one of the first things that I wanted when I came into office, is to get something in Hendersonville. We have a multitude of senior citizens out here. If we had some shops, wonderful older ladies that would love to work for a few hours in these shops to supplement their income. I could just go on with the things that Hendersonville needs. These are the things that I intend to keep pursuing as long as my ward leaves me in office. And my ward has been good to me. And thank God no one ran against me this time, because this is the most enviable position, to be sitting up here just kind of in the catbird seat and not having to get out and worry about if. It's not that I think that I can do better than anybody else in my ward, but it's just that I just feel like the people in Ward 3 appreciate what both Mark and I do, because of all the telephone calls that we get. And even not in our ward, we get so many calls, at least I do, because I guess they think that I'm always home. And I always answer those calls. I have always done that. I will continue to do that as long as I am elected. And thank you so much. Thank you again, the League of Women Voters.
I'm Terry Graham, candidate for Alderman in Ward 5. I believe that one way a voter can come to a conclusion about the candidate, which candidate to choose, is by taking a good look at the people who are supporting the candidate. I will be mailing in the next few days a letter to each home in Ward 5, and that letter will contain the names of some of the people who are supporting me. I urge every voter in Ward 5 to look over the list carefully. These people do not take their endorsements lightly, and I am grateful to them for their support. I am pleased that they think I am the most qualified to represent them on the Board of Mayor and Alderman. I do not intend to disappoint them. There are many important issues facing the city of Hendersonville, but I believe the most pressing issue is our fiscal policy, the way we spend the taxpayers' money. There are those who have been pushing for a property tax increase for several years. I am against a property tax increase. We must control our spending to avoid a tax increase Our current city budget has expenditures exceeding income of approximately $500,000. This money will come from our reserve fund. That will soon be depleted if this trend continues. I support a new fire hall and a new public safety building that's so badly needed for our city. But however, the present plans for these facilities will likely result in a tax increase because they are too expensive. We must build these facilities with the money that was earmarked for this in the Capital Improvements Bond Fund. The truth is, we cannot ride in a Mercedes if we only have money for a Ford. Some of the other things that I will support if elected as your alderman are a line item budget. This will give our alderman and our mayor a way to closely supervise expenditures and spending within the departments. I will support design review and will push to get the ordinance in place to establish this. This will make our city more attractive, not only to our residents, but make us more attractive in attracting new industry to Hendersonville. I am deeply committed to our parks and improving our park system. We need to work to make our parks more accessible to our citizens by having access from Wessington and the old Shackle Island area into the parks and the ball fields, which is badly needed. I will support recruiting new industry to our city, which will provide more jobs and a larger tax base. And I finally want to make it clear one more time that I will not support a property tax increase. Thank you for letting me come into your homes today, and I thank the League of Women Voters for making this possible.
I am Lewis Ellis, candidate for Ward 5 Alderman in the September the 27th city election. I thank the League of Women Voters for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I have had the pleasure of getting to know a great many of you as I have gone door to door the past several weeks. My church family at First United Methodist Church, my friends in the 100 Plus Club, the Masons, and the Hendersonville Recycling Committee know me. And I believe they will tell you that I am a serious, professional individual who believes in taking a strictly business approach to anything I undertake. I have no political axis to grind. I am not part of any of the feuding factions who have often log-jammed important city business. For the past 5 years, I have attended most of the meetings of the Board of Mayor and Alderman, and I have observed a need for a more business-like approach in city government. Too many issues are clouded by bickering, personality clashes, and political factions. As your alderman, I will bring a business approach to doing city business. I am Vice President of Kirby Building Systems, one of Sumner County's largest employers. I understand budgets, personnel administrations, and the team concept. My wife, Kathy, and I have selected Hendersonville as the place to raise our children, Matt, Shannon, and Carrie. We have enjoyed the quality of life in Hendersonville. Now I want to contribute to the city by offering my business experience and talents as your alderman. There are some differences between my view of government and that of my opponent. Take zoning matters, for example. My interest in local government peaked about 5 years ago when a high-density project was proposed right down the street from me. Since then, I have consistently supported other neighborhoods who opposed rezoning requests which impacted their areas. My opponent does not share this same concern for your neighborhoods. As a member of the Planning Commission in 1988, he voted for a commercial zoning request which was overwhelmingly opposed by neighbors in River Chase, Bluegrass Estates, and Bluegrass Meadows. In spite of petitions, large crowds, and tremendous opposition, my opponent voted to approve the project. Now he is asking those same neighborhoods to elect him as their alderman. An alderman must be able to manage a budget and be financially adept. Both my personal and business finances are without blemish. I have proven myself as a successful manager of money and budgets. If you agree that it's time to get down to business in Hendersonville, I'm your kind of candidate. I am asking for your support and your vote on September the 27th. Thank you.
I would like to thank Mr. Prentice, Mrs. Skidmore, Mr. Graham, and Mr. Ellis for joining us today, and we certainly wish you well in the election. The League appreciates you coming today to let the voters know what you represent and how you will direct the business of our city. We also want to thank our audience for watching this portion of the forum. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our moderator for the mayoral portion of the forum. Mrs. Virginia Thigpen is a former Sumner County Commissioner and currently serves at Volunteer State Community College as an Associate Professor of English. She has been moderating debates and forums for several years and brings great expertise to this endeavor today. We are pleased that she could be a part of the Hendersonville League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. We will now take a short break and return with the mayoral portion of our forum. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome you back to the second portion of the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum this morning. We are taping at City Hall, and we will be showing this program on Par Cable. I'm Virginia Thigpen, and I'd like to welcome our mayoral candidates. They are seated in alphabetical order. To my immediate right is Mr. Erskine Ausbrooks. To his right is Mr. Hank Thompson, and to his right is Mr. Phillip Wilson. These candidates will be introducing themselves, by way of a 2-minute speech. Then each candidate will be asked a question, a series of questions drawn from the hat. We thought that literally we would draw questions from a hat. The questions have been prepared in advance by the League of Women Voters, by the Free Press, and by the Star News. We thank them for their participation in this project. The questions range from cover a variety of issues ranging from taxes, tax base, to things like the Parks Department, some of the issues that you heard addressed in the first portion of this program. We will have time, we think, for 4 questions asked of each candidate, and we will alternate in alphabetical order for those. If a candidate is not asked a question that he wishes to address, the time to address that question would be in the closing remarks. And in the closing remarks, we will allot 5 minutes to each candidate. So without further ado, if you gentlemen are ready, I will ask Mr. Erskine Ausbrooks to begin with his introductory statements about himself.
Thank you, Ms. Thigpen. I would like to use this opportunity also to thank the League of Women Voters for their important part in making our community aware of the candidates, the issues, and the stands. At this point in the political life and history of Hendersonville, we need the most experienced and qualified person available to fill the office of mayor. As your first elected mayor under the mayor-aldermanic form of government, and as a former city manager, and one who has his education in the field of political science, I know and understand government. Having served our nation for over 30 years and our state for over 5, I will bring this experience to City Hall to serve you and our community. I believe that now, more than ever, we need conservative public servants as opposed to liberal politicians. The next administration will be faced with some very difficult issues. I believe that fiscal concerns will be among the most important and the most pressing. This will require that we have proven management, ability, integrity, and leadership in the office of mayor. We must slow the growth of spending in our community and stay within our limits. You must live within your means, the city must live within its. I ask for your support then on September the 27th in order to return responsibility and integrity to City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Ausbrooks. The next candidate is Mr. Thompson.
I want to give a special thanks to the League of Women Voters for the fine service they provide our community. If I'm elected mayor, I will do the following. I will introduce a resolution that will limit the number of political signs to 25 per candidate. As I've been going door to door, and that's in any election, as I've been going door to door, I guarantee you the people of Hendersonville are sick of them. A building for the police department will be my #1 priority. I will build more baseball fields, more soccer fields, and more volleyball courts in the park. I support a Washington area entrance into the park, and I will improve the parking conditions in the park. I support a fire hall in the Indian Lake area. I also support better accountability from the water utility district to the people of Hendersonville. The swimming pool referendum I also will support as my next priority. I will introduce a resolution to change the election date for the election of City of Hendersonville. I've been very proud of my independence record in my campaign. The date of the election, as you go door to door and people ask you why is the election at this separate date, this is a perfect example of a tactic used by the old political interest and special interest groups in the city of Hendersonville to get a light turnout so that they can get their candidate elected. I am the only candidate that can change this. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Our third candidate is Mr. Phillip Wilson.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today. I'm Phillip Wilson. I'm a 32-year resident of Hendersonville, and I'm a current alderman from Ward 5, serving on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen here in Hendersonville. I'm also chairman of the Capital Projects Committee, which oversees any capital projects by the city of Hendersonville in excess of $25,000, which includes our fire hall and the proposed public safety building. I'm a member of the Finance Committee for the city of Hendersonville, and I'm former chairman and vice chairman of the Hendersonville Personnel Board, elected by the employees to serve them. I'm a board member of the Senior Citizens of Hendersonville Incorporated, and I'm also president of Hendersonville Big Brothers in Shackle Island. I am a member of Bluegrass Baptist Church here in Hendersonville. I'm a liaison to the Board of Economic Community Development and the Industrial Development Board with the city. And I'm married to Melissa Ojano Wilson, who taught at Hendersonville High School for 7 years, and I'm the father, and she's the proud mother of our son Braxton Wilson, who is 13 months old. And I'm happy to have grown up in Hendersonville and look forward to serving you as your mayor for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. We will now proceed to the question portion. And as I say, we have our handy hat here, and I will draw a question. These placed at random. Mr. Ausbrooks, in the fall of 1989, the Hendersonville League of Women Voters made a presentation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen concerning the use of revenue from liquor by the drink sales. What is your position on returning this revenue to a fund which would enhance Hendersonville City Schools, as the League suggested?
Mrs. Thigpen, I think the community is aware that I was very active in opposing liquor by the drink for this community, but the people have spoken, and the majority indicated by a rather close margin that they wanted to have that available to our people. Revenues are, of course, one of the advantages. However, the revenues are not as great, and I hope they will not be a large source of income to our city. But the law already covers the manner in which those funds are to be used as far as outside of the city. Within the city, they go to the general fund. I believe that they should be used for any appropriate use of the city or need of the city, but I do not favor giving that money to the county, which is responsible for education. Local education efforts, yes.
Thank you. The next question, and as I say, candidates, if there is a question that one of the other candidates happens to be asked that you would like to respond to, that would be a good time for you to, a good time to do that would be in your closing remarks. Mr. Thompson, what is your attitude towards citizens' comments during the mayor-alderman meetings and the length of time they are currently taking at these meetings?
Okay. As you go door to door and campaign with the voters of Hendersonville, one of the main questions that they ask, and one of their top priorities, is to organize the public meetings of mayor and alderman. And this is one of the things that will be my top priority, and I believe that strong leadership that can do. The citizens' comments, there's nothing wrong with them except a couple of things. One, it should only be what's on the agenda. You have several alternatives that you can do. You can either put them at the end of the meeting if they're important enough that people will stay in for the citizen comments. You can change the rules with the mayor, with the alderman, and you can arrange this so that they can be put at the end of the meeting. And another thing that is wrong is that in the county commission where I served for 9 years, anything on citizen comments is only what's on the agenda. The second thing is that there is no need for a conversation between the alderman and the people that are giving the public comments. Those are about 3 things that I would do to change them.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, the completion of the bypass will create new traffic patterns for Hendersonville. What improvements would you propose to enhance the flow of traffic to and from the bypass?
I think we need to work with the state of Tennessee to see that Shackle Island Road is improved to at least a 3-lane road, and also the same for Calendar Lane. Calendar Lane probably should be improved to at least a 3-lane road also, with the widening of that road where you can have 2 lanes out in the morning and 2 lanes in the evening. This will aid access. We also need to work with the developers or the future potential developers of Indian Lake Center to secure the completion of Indian Lake Road across the back to Calendar Lane and the flow of traffic patterns along the front from Anderson Lane back into Indian Lake Center. This will facilitate the movement of traffic back and forth. In addition to that, the city of Hendersonville needs to again work closer with the state of Tennessee to see what we can secure as to the opening of the Free Hill Road access. The land is already there. The state left the right-of-way for that access, and it's a matter of our working in arrangement with the state of Tennessee to see that that's opened.
Thank you. We'll come back to Mr. Ausbrooks. Some candidates may be prohibited from running for a city office by the expense involved in a campaign. Would you favor a charter amendment which would limit the amount one could spend on a campaign?
Yes, if that can be brought about. There have been numerous attempts at almost every level of government to do that. I think that some effort to limit may be successful, and I would support such a thing. It's important that as many people who are interested, who are qualified, who have the time, or willing to give the time to run for public office. It is an essential part of democracy that the people have a choice, and that the citizens of the community have an opportunity to hear the stands and the issues themselves. So by limiting the amount of money that is required, I think we'll get more people to run for local office, particularly in the wards, more so possibly than the mayor's race. But I would certainly favor a limit on both of those, because I'm very much aware of how much it costs to run a citywide campaign.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, what is your first priority among capital projects for the city?
Well, I think I stated that in my opening remarks, that my first priority would be the police department's new building. I think that it could be done either in stages. I think that the policemen would be happy to move out of any part of the building, as I think Mr. Prentice, in his remarks stated. If you haven't been in that building, Hendersonville, city of Hendersonville is ashamed of it, and you should be ashamed of it. The prices that the aldermen have been putting in the ad hoc committees and the design that's been going on for 2 years, which it was an issue 2 years ago when I ran, it's still just in the planning stage. It's not gotten off the ground, and it will be my top priority. It's still in the design stage, and the cost, my experience as an electrical engineer in dealing with construction and design plans, I feel that the cost is too high for cost per square foot, and the amount of money that's been allotted for it. If it has to be done in stages, then I favor doing it in that, but I believe that it should be kept within the limits of what the money that was allocated for it in the first place.
Thank you. Yes, some of the questions may overlap with some of
Right.
the things you've already said. That's the luck of the draw. Mr. Wilson, what do you perceive to be this city's image, and how can the mayor's office enhance the image of the city?
I think the image of the city of Hendersonville has improved vastly in the last 2 years, and I'm happy to have had a part in that. The recent controversies of the past have been overcome in the past 2 years by calm, stable management, and I would look forward to continuing that. I think one of the prime responsibilities of being mayor of Hendersonville is to aid in the economic development of Hendersonville, to share the tax burden and redistribute that tax burden off the back of homeowners. As you all know, the prime income for the operating budget of the city of Hendersonville is from property taxes. The majority of that comes from personal income, personal property taxes on your own home. We need to encourage and seek future development within Hendersonville to bring jobs to Hendersonville. Every day we send over 12,000 people to Nashville. We need to seek out jobs and companies that could relocate many of those jobs back to Hendersonville, and those people, if working in Hendersonville, would then spend their money in Hendersonville. And I see this as my primary responsibility and a responsibility of any mayor in the future of Hendersonville. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ausbrooks, what are your feelings about the city funding special agencies like the Chamber of Commerce, the Arts Council, Rock Castle, etc.?
As a relatively young municipality, we're 22 years old, there are a number of functions of local government that are not currently performed by city government itself. The volunteer agencies fill that vacuum in our community life, and as such, I believe that there should be some support from your tax dollars for those agencies. That support, of course, should be predicated and balanced upon their contribution to the community at large, as opposed to their particular special interest areas. Voluntary donations, general public support throughout the community for the activities of their choice and interest, of course, will always remain a part of a democracy. But I do believe in limited, carefully chosen amounts for the various agencies in order that those functions of community life, essential, desirable aspects of community life, may be facilitated.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, this is also a question that you addressed in your opening statement, but there's another part to it. Should Hendersonville's park system be expanded? The second part is, if yes, how should it be funded?
Okay. The park system, which I've been involved in quite a bit in my community service in Hendersonville, I'm a member of the Civitan Club and coach Little League and Little League Baseball and Pee Wee football for 12 years down there. I have been a member of the Civitan Club for 20 years that I've been in Hendersonville, worked in the concession stand. Our park needs so much. As an electrical engineer with TVA, one of the last jobs that I worked on was a design for 8 baseball fields addition in New Johnsonville, Tennessee. Now, there's a lot of ways that things can be done to improve the park system. For instance, that city got the National Guard and an engineering unit out of Fort Campbell to come down and do all the excavation. So there are many ways that you can get funds to help expand the parks and do work in the parks. If none of you have been over there lately, the parking situation is terrible. The parking lot needs to be improved, expanded. It needs to be lined off better. It's amazing that someone hasn't got hurt over there or killed lately. There's a lot of work that I would like to do in the parks. There's a lot of design work, free services through state agencies and through TVA and the other government agencies and grants that can help in the park area. And some of those have been used before, but it's a shame that we have had, since I've been in Hendersonville, one Little League baseball field that is lighted for the 9 and 10-year-old group. So there's a lot of things that need to be done in the park. There are many ways that you can go and that you can get funds to help expand and to do work in the park. And especially there's other things to be done in the Saunders Ferry area with parks that can be done for adult groups, for instance. So there's a lot of things to be done in the park, and that's one area that as I said in my opening statement, will be one of my priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the city need a community center? And if so, what is the best way to obtain one?
Well, our community has many needs. We need a community center. We need a civic center. Probably a joint facility would be the best way to obtain either one of those. The demands of the public in this town have grown and matured as this city has matured. We need an expanded parks facilities as well as a community center to offer swimming and other activities to our young people and to our adults and senior citizens alike. Probably one of the best ways and most affordable ways for our city to obtain this would be a bond issue by the city for the expansion of our services and facilities. The current income of the city right now on property tax and sales tax income would not support a capital projects internally within the city to build these type facilities, but with a bond issue, we are on the level of paying off certain bonds and reducing our capital debt so that we could afford that bond issue for these specific projects. And I am very much in favor of this. We have been quite fortunate in this year. We have taken over the Sertoma Parks behind Wessington School. We have managed to light two of those fields in Drakes Creek Park to expand our parks facility, and I was happy to be a part of that. And I look forward to continuing to expand our park system, but also expand it in a way that benefits all the citizens of Hendersonville, not just young people, but senior citizens and middle-aged people alike.
Thank you. We will ask one more round of questions, and then we will move to our closing statements. We're trying to keep this program at a little over an hour so that the viewing public will watch the whole program. Well, I keep getting 2 or 3 here. Mr. Ausbrooks, should the Hendersonville Utility District be integrated into city services? Why or why not?
I'm glad that I got that question, Ms. Thigpen.
That's a good one, huh?
I am on record, both as city manager and in my 2 years as mayor, when I set forth in writing my long-term goals and objectives for the city. I am on record for the city ultimately absorbing the utility district. Not just water and sewer, however, but I believe that a full-fledged municipality, a mature municipality, must control all of the utilities as it controls the zoning and codes, subdivision regulations, public safety, all of those things. A city as it matures, in order that it may speak with one voice, deal with the prospective growth, with new business, industry, they must be able to also control their utilities. I prefer the word absorb as opposed to take over, or the term that you used, but it is a very essential part of our community government, and as such, we need to be in control. Remember that the utility district predates the incorporation of our city, and so for that reason, is a separate entity. But as we mature further, I believe it is essential that those two organizations merge together and that the utility district becomes a department of municipal government.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, what do you think has been accomplished in terms of the city's industrial development? Excuse me, let me start that again. What do you think has been accomplished in terms of the city's industrial development, and how would you enhance this development?
In my 28 years of working with TVA, part of my job was to deal in industrial development. I've worked with the industrial development associations in Middle Tennessee and through the electric co-op associations such as Cumberland Electric, which serves part of Hendersonville. That's where I have a lot of experience. I plan to do a lot of industrial development work myself personally. I think that a lot of people don't realize that most of the jobs, that the statistics prove that most of the jobs in the state of Tennessee come from the expansion of existing industries and not from recruiting new industries. We have some fine industries in this city that I think should be worked with closely, more closely by the mayor and the city, and cooperate more with the codes and speed up the process that these people have to do. As I've campaigned and gone around and visited the existing industry in this town, there are two industries that are wanting to expand, but do not want to face the hassle that they're facing with some of the things going on in the city government, that they are talking about expanding in other cities. And this, I think, is something that the existing industries is an important part of industrial development as recruiting new industries. I think that to compete with other cities and other areas for industrial development, that the water and sewers utility will have to sometime be taken over by the city of Hendersonville. You have to do this to provide water and city in an industrial development park, which you can get these done through government services at no cost in helping you design an industrial park. But you have to provide the water and sewage there. So until that is done, sometime down the road, Hendersonville is going to fall behind in industrial development of recruitment of new industry. But I think there's plenty of work to be done in dealing with the existing industries, and with my experience, I plan to deal with both.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson. Final question. We seem to keep coming up with some of the same issues. We did have 22 questions prepared, ladies and gentlemen.
Luck of the draw.
Do you favor constructing a new public safety building, which the city can afford at the present time, or one which can be built in phases to meet the future needs of the police department?
Well, as chairman of the Capital Projects Committee, which was formed after the golf course debacle, we have been charged with all capital projects in excess of $25,000. The major one of those right now being the public safety building. Public safety building has been on the books here in Hendersonville since approximately 1985, which under Mr. Ausbrooks' administration was never quite able to get off the ground. In fact, the site was never picked. As chairman of the capital projects, I was very fortunate and to help deliver to the city 4 acres of free land outside of a floodplain and prime development area given by the Matthews Company for the development of the new public safety building. The Capital Projects Committee 4 weeks ago made a presentation to the Board of Mayor and Alderman. The concept of a phased designed building in 2 phases. The first phase giving a net usable square footage of 15,000 feet. The second phase delivering a net usable square footage of around 11,000 square feet for a total gross square footage of around 30,000 square feet. That'll carry us on into the next century. I'm an advocate of this phased design, and I believe this city can support it. We have approximately $2.1 million right now in the $4.9 million bond fund. I also sponsored a ad hoc committee to do research and to recommend to this board the selling of the Freehill Road property, or the possible dispensation of the Freehill Road property, to use that money for additional capital projects as well as the public safety building here in the city of Hendersonville. So I'm very much proud that in the last 8 months we've done more than in 5 years and are moving ahead with this project, and I will continue to do so.
Thank you. We have a hat full of other questions. And I think probably in looking at my watch, I said we'd have one, that would be the last set of questions. And looking at my watch and trying to keep up with the time, I believe we have time for another question if you gentlemen agree to that.
That's fine.
That's all right with the audience also. Go one more round here. Mr. Ausbrooks, why doesn't the committee system seem to work for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen? What changes can be made?
It is my belief that the standing committee structure for Hendersonville does work. The various issues that face city government should be first considered by a committee that is responsible for that particular subject area. We made, in setting up this form of government, we made certain rules, however, that do not allow a particular standing committee to hold up legislation or bottle it up and never bring it to the floor. I think that is important. I believe that if an issue concerns an alderman, it is of sufficient importance then that it be considered in depth in a committee and then be brought to the entire Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Yes, it takes a while to discuss those issues, particularly when you've got 12 aldermen and the mayor up here. But open public debate is a fundamental principle of democracy. And unless those subjects are discussed openly at this table, the people do not have an opportunity to know the things that were considered, to know the stand taken by the candidates, and to know what the various aspects of that particular question are. I do not want us to move to the system that is used in the county, where decisions are made among a few people in the back room and never openly discussed in the public eye. It is essential that the committee system continue, but that the issues be brought to this table so that the public may know what is going on in their government.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, do you believe that the organizational structure of the city personnel needs to be changed in any way?
I believe that efficient management in government can be done, and I think I proved that with the record that I have in the county commission by the 911 committee and also the resource authority. Efficient management in government can be accomplished, and I'm proud to say that it's been accomplished in Sumner County. This type of efficient management can help decrease the possibility of a tax increase for the city of Henderson. For example, the resource authority lessened the amount of subsidy from the city of Hendersonville by $140,000 last year, which helped them hold the tax rate. So I believe in efficient management in government. I think that the department heads at this time, I don't see any need for the change in the organization. I think there should be some tightening up of the reins, and I think it needs stronger leadership in the management. I do not see any need for real change in the department head system that we have. I think that it just needs good administration and good management.
Thank you. And Mr. Wilson. What would you do as mayor to make the Board of Mayor-Alderman meetings more efficient and productive?
I think the Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings are productive. They are not always as efficient as they should be, but then most public meetings seldom are. I feel that by operating under the adopted Robert's Rules of Order, which was adopted in 1986, that this board would operate more efficiently, the members keeping themselves to speaking twice on any subject, the chair operating with decorum and courtesy being the primary rule of operating by the board and by the chair also, that these meetings would become more efficient. I think better use of the committee system, contrary to Mr. Ausbrooks, I don't believe that by having a committee meeting you're hiding anything from the public. The public is encouraged to come to committee meetings, and also the committee meetings are held and advertised so that the public can be there. But by a greater use of the committee system and by the committees reporting out at the proper time of the agenda when that item is being discussed, I think it would do a great deal to speed our meetings up and to conduct them more like business meetings. Having been, of course, in private industry and in business for myself all my adult working life, I know what it is to sit into a properly run business meeting, and will attempt to run our Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings that way, courteously but efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be moving now to the closing statements. I might mention some of the issues that were not drawn out of the hat, and in case any of you gentlemen would want to respond to those. A question about enhancing the city's tax base, a question about the Main Street Beautification Master Plan, the design plan, the swimming pool. Someone has already mentioned the golf course, and this was a question that dealt with the swimming pool part of that referendum. Recycling, garbage collection, the hiring of a city administrator, and finally the question about property tax increase. So those were questions that were not drawn out of the hat, and you might want to, as you prepare your closing statements, gentlemen, address any one of those issues. We decided that we would conduct a draw for the order of closing statements. Of course, the voters have the last word, but today one of these candidates will also have the last word. And instead of moving right to left or left to right or alphabetically prior to the taping of this program, we ask some of the citizens who were here to draw out of the hat, as it were, for the closing order of today's mayoral forum. Mr. Wilson will be speaking first, Mr. Ausbrooks will be speaking second, and Mr. Thompson will be speaking third. So the candidates have 5 minutes for their closing statements, and I would ask Mr. Wilson if you are ready.
Yes,
Our
ma'am.
timekeepers are ready, and we thank you.
Okay, thank you. The future of Hendersonville is at stake. For 2 years, we have repaired the damages and the controversies of the past, and I'm happy to have been a major part of that. Now we must look to the future. Voters will decide whether they want a mayor with common sense and a plan and vision for the future, a bright future for your kids and for mine, or a mayor who is looking for a supplement to a retirement. The choice is clear. 2 gentlemen are trained in the bureaucracy and steeped in federal government and government agencies. Myself, a businessman with a lifelong commitment to this city, is experienced to manage your affairs here in City Hall. One who has never participated in City Hall, and another who has led us to embarrassment and controversy, or myself, who knows what is going on here. One who has voted almost annual tax increases on the citizens of Hendersonville and Sumner County. And yes, our subsidy to the Resource Authority did drop, but our tipping fee went up to $40 a ton, which caused us to have to increase your disposal charge by $12 a year. And one who voted the largest tax increase ever in the city of Hendersonville, a 63% tax increase. Or myself, who for the past 2 years has managed to hold to a 67-cent per hundred tax rate and operate efficiently. In 1990, we paved $240,000 more in streets than when Mr. Ausbrooks last year of his term. Yet our fund balance did decrease by $90,000, but we increased services. I have voted for expanded parks facilities. I have supported the public safety building as chairman of the Capital Projects Committee. I have supported the Indian Lake Fire Hall as chairman of the Capital Projects Committee. Both these projects have moved more in the past 8 months than they've moved in the previous 5 years. I secured an arrangement with the Hendersonville Utility District that at a very preferred rate, we are able to install 14 fire hydrants for the city of Hendersonville at no cost of installation to the taxpayers. I have supported the economic community development of this town by funding an economic community development director to go out and secure business for the city of Hendersonville, and also to look to the expansion and aid to current businesses here. I have supported paving your streets and fixing the everyday things that you need and you demand. I know the people of Hendersonville want the best for their city and its future. I know they want a city that they can be proud of. We need to forge ahead into the future and not look to the past. With leadership that will make Hendersonville once again the spot, the place it should be within the state of Tennessee, and not an object of derision and division. I know I am that person. I have the energy, the drive, the vision, and the experience to do what it takes to make Hendersonville the best city in the state of Tennessee, and I would appreciate your vote on September 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Ausbrooks is our second speaker, closing speaker.
Your next mayor must be qualified, experienced, competent, and proven. He must be willing to devote the time and effort that is required to be a full-time mayor, the chief executive officer of our municipal corporation. I was instrumental in changing our form of government from the city commission, city manager form to that of the traditional mayor-aldermanic form. And as your first elected mayor, to implement that form of government chosen by 2-to-1 by the people of Hendersonville. I have earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in political science. I have worked in government for over 30 years. I have learned something in the process. One of the issues that has been spoken about a number of times here this morning concerns your property taxes. Contrary to a statement made here, property taxes, however, are not the largest single source of taxes. Sales taxes are. But when I became mayor, our property tax rate was 90 cents per $100 assessed value. As a result of countywide reappraisal, that tax rate was lowered. And then we put back in sufficient monies to repay the bond issue that was made by our city, by this board, in order to meet the expressed will of the people concerning a golf course and a swimming pool, and then the other things in the area of public safety and capital improvements that had long been standing in line for the city of Hendersonville. When we made that change and also put in 1 penny to promote economic and community development as is provided for in state law, we ended up with a tax rate of 67 cents per $100 assessed value. That is one of the lowest municipal tax rates anywhere in the state for a city of our size. But I am determined to keep that rate as long as possible. I do not believe that there should be an increase in the property tax rate unless it is supported by a referendum or other public mandate of the people. When I left office at the end of my first term, I left over $2.3 million in our general fund reserve. We did that by adding to the reserves each year, by spending less than we took in, by substantially spending less than our budget. I also left approximately $4 million in our capital improvement fund. We must expand the tax rate that Hendersonville has in order to increase our revenues. Certain increases in revenues have occurred over the years and will continue to occur as long as we have inflation and as long as we have growth. But we must mold and shape that growth so that it will be beneficial to Hendersonville. Annexation of areas that are already receiving public services at the taxpayer's expense is, of course, an appropriate thing to do. During my first administration, we added more territory to the city limits of Hendersonville than had been done in a number of years in the past. We took islands, if you will, pockets of land that were completely surrounded by city territory that had been left out for the advantage of certain individuals and special interest groups. Those have now all been absorbed into the city. I believe that we should continue with that to take those areas that are already being taken care of with the public dollar in order that they would pay their fair share of the taxes for our community. I believe also that new construction, new growth, whether it be commercial, industrial, or residential, of course, will add to the tax base of our city. We need to have fair appraisals on that property. At the present time, Hendersonville is carrying an inordinate share of the property tax base of our entire county, and I would like to see that changed. I ask you to carefully compare the candidates that are here before you today and will be on the ballot on September the 27th, and choose the individual that you believe is best qualified to return integrity and accountability to City Hall. I ask you for your support and vote on September the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Ausbrooks. Mr. Thompson.
It's very fortunate when you have a three-man race for mayor to be the third man when both of them on each sides of you are shooting at your voting record. I feel very fortunate to be going last. I think that I've shown in 9 years of public service as your county commissioner representing the spending of your tax dollars that I've shown strength and leadership by my accomplishments and my actions. And that's why I ask for your support to continue to with these accomplishments and actions for the city of Hendersonville. I think it's interesting, and I would think that both of you, if you don't have a pencil and you don't have enough more paper, on page 5, book 256, in the minutes of the Sumner County office of Mr. Bill Kemp, who is the new county court clerk, are the records of the minutes of the Sumner County Commission. The tax rate was set on August the 7th, 1989, with a $35 increase in the wheel tax and a 23-cent increase in the property tax. This public record of my voting record, and I think maybe why the people who researched it for both of you missed it, is that it was a special call meeting, and you should fire them because they did some bad research. This matter of public record shows that Hank Thompson voted no, nay, against the wheel tax and the property tax increase. Now, I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Ausbrooks would take an ad out in the paper yesterday and distort my voting record. I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Wilson would take a shot and say that I have voted for a tax increase like the voting record that he distorted in his ad, which said that I voted for a tax increase, every tax increase since 1985, and that is nothing but a bold-faced lie in its public record. Now, you notice they said 1985 in that ad. I voted for a tax decrease before 1985. That's why they do the line at 1985. I don't think any candidate here has ever voted for a property tax decrease, okay? Now, this is the kind of politics that the city of Hendersonville, the people, the citizens of Hendersonville are tired of. They're tired of this kind of politics. They're tired of the kind that an alderman walks up to me before the meeting and says, we know we're not going to have questions from the audience, but I have a question for you. An alderman that I'm going to work with, if I'm elected, to unite this city and get something done for the future. It says, Mr. Thompson, you have said that you was not for property tax increase. At the county level, you voted for increase in property taxes for several years. How can we, the citizens, be sure that you will not vote to increase property tax in Hendersonville? And I've just told you, I have a reputation of spending your tax dollars wisely. Now, an alderman and people are tired of aldermen, they're tired of department heads getting involved in politics in the city of Hendersonville. Now, I can work with this man because I can forget this. But that's the kind of politics that people are tired of in the city of Hendersonville. I think the voters want someone who has a record of established leadership and strong leadership, and they do not want to go back to the turmoil that we've had in the past in the city of Hendersonville. That's why I ask for your support, and I ask for your vote, so that I can help lead Hendersonville into the 90s. I know that I have 5 minutes, and that's a little short of my time, but I always like to be remembered as the bald-headed guy who let you off a little early.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. When we drew for positions, I didn't know what what the last word would mean. The last word, of course, does belong to the voters on September 27th. So as you watch this program on Park Cable and as you have watched it here today, you can keep in mind the positions expressed by the three mayoral candidates. This has been a very good forum, gentlemen. I thank you very much for your participation. It's not easy to know that you're being taped for viewing later on. Sometimes candidates get a little tongue-tied, and you all answered your questions with great eloquence. As a speech teacher, I would give you all very good grades, you see.
My son only got a C out of it.
I'm sorry. The League of Women Voters is very pleased to have hosted this forum today for you, and we have some special thanks for people who have helped out with the production. Our photographer, Mr. Todd Eskew, who has been serving as cameraman for the last, well, he's been here quite a while this morning. The City of Hendersonville for the use of the facilities. We have a very nice crowd here, and this has been a very good place to hold a forum. Park Cable for the broadcast of this program today. As Mrs. Ames mentioned in her opening remarks, the evenings of September 23rd and 26th the program will be shown, and daytime September 24th and 25th. So the 4 days prior to the election will be used by Park Cable for the viewing of this program. We'd also like to thank Susie Perkins, editor of the Free Press, and Jan Chateau, editor of the Star News, for providing questions for the mayoral candidates. And then particularly to the league members, the individual league members who have supported this project and worked to make this forum possible. Our timekeepers who have been diligently watching the stopwatch. We have 2 stopwatches here in case one went awry. We have a set of cards that we have been holding up for the candidates. And we'd like to thank all of the league members who participated in this project. We hope you've gained information during this event that enables you to make an informed decision at the polls. Most importantly, we ask that you exercise your right to vote and that you get out to vote on September 27th, that you encourage your neighbors to vote and provide representative government for the city of Hendersonville. Thank you for watching, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, good luck. Good job. Good luck.